The other day I sat down, I was looking back at a lot of my content. I was realizing there's things I've said in the past without much justification for, and I thought it'd be fair to go back on those things. One of those topics in particular was my hatred towards aquascaping. I've made there's two major videos where I've discussed this. There's my old rant video with my stupid MS Paint avatar. And then after that, it's mentioned a few times in the podcast, but we never really go into much detail about why other than them being ugly. And I realized I didn't really have much of a reason for my disliking of them. But the other day I sat down and I thought about it and I came to the conclusion as to why I do not like aquascaping. There's two major points I want to bring up here. The first point I'd like to bring up is that aquascaping is a separate hobby, okay? I want to show you two pictures on screen, okay? Here's an aquascaped aquarium, okay? Now, I don't like this, but here's a terrarium that looks like some mountains. Now, this terrarium's cute. In fact, I have some terrariums very similar to this one. Here's a little mountainscape terrarium I made. It's got a cute little hut. I love this thing. And here's another one that has some clay creatures in it and creates this cool scenery. Obviously that one's a bit different. That's more akin to having fake decorations in your aquarium, which I see nothing wrong with. I've got the plastic pirate ship in my Blackwater, but the thing is, why am I okay with that, but not the aquarium? Well, what lives in a terrarium? Maybe some isopods, maybe some springtails, but what lives in an aquarium? Fish. The requirements for fish are very different than something like a bug, okay? Isopods, you know what you do with isopods? Isopods, you put them in a container, you give them some food and some leaf litter, and they're set for life. That you can keep them in basically perpetual darkness and they'll be okay, right? Fish, definitely not the case. I'm going to show a lot of aquascape pictures on screen here, and you're going to kind of understand the purpose of what I'm trying to convey. A few days ago, I made a video on floaters and why they help to create a calm and naturalistic environment for fish. Because fish, smaller fish at least, which are, if you look at any of these aquascapes, what the fish they're usually putting in these, they're usually putting shrimp or neon tetras, generic one, guppies, amano shrimp, that kind of thing. Small fish like that, like rasboras, like tetras, all like bettas even, they need hiding places. They need to create an ideal environment for them. They need some hiding places. They need a lot of foliage to hide within, which is why I advocate for floaters in your aquarium so much. Do any of these aquascapes that I'm showing on screen look like they provide adequate hiding space? Probably not. And that is the main gripe I've realized I have with aquascaping, is that aquascape, and this is why I say it's a separate hobby, because aquascaping is about creating a beautiful environment, period. It's more akin to, again, creating a terrarium or just a general like diorama thing. Now, compared to like actual fish keeping, or like the actual hobby, which should be about creating a naturalistic environment for your fish. That's the main point I wanted to bring across, is that they are not natural environments for fish. And going off that, I'd like to say that I do respect aquascaping as a hobby. There are some genuinely very beautiful tanks out there made in these professional competitions. And this isn't just like, there are the more like akin to reality, I guess you could say, ones like the biotope competitions, because that style of aquascaping I really like, because it works to create an environment that's actually very natural for the fish. But even the ones where they're creating trees and like mountainscapes are cool until you chuck the fish in there. So that's why I respect it as a separate hobby. The issue is, and don't get me wrong, they often put fish in these tanks for contests and stuff like that, but the problem I have is that people see this and they think, oh, I want to create the epic aquascape, because I went through the same thing. I once wanted a moss tree. I'm glad I didn't make a moss tree, but that's not the point I'm trying to get across. The point is, people see this stuff and they think, oh, that's perfect for the fish. That looks awesome. And this is usually newer members in the hobby where they haven't thought about the intricacies of, not the intricacies, but they haven't thought about creating the ideal environment for the fish. Because when you start the hobby, all you really think, most people, I'd say 9 out of 10 people, there are exceptions, just think, oh, I want pretty fishy and nice aquarium, right? They don't think about, oh, okay, fish need hiding places. I mean, I mentioned in the podcast that when I started my tank, I left the light on 24/7. See, like, people can be mad dumb, all right? But those were the main 2 points I wanted to come across, is that aquascapes generally do not favor the fish. They more favor looking aesthetically pleasing. And unfortunately, people will, think that, oh, the professional does that, so I should do that, and that's what happens.
Good sit. Good sit.
Also, this is me from the future just chiming in here to say that leaf litter and botanicals in general, as well as that nice Blackwater stain, are really characteristic of a healthy, not for all fish, but generally a healthy and very natural aquarium for certain fish. My Blackwater tank's in the background right now. Now, it is lacking a bit in tannins, but those tannins are incredibly beneficial for the tetras in that tank and the betta especially, right? So that is about creating a natural environment for your tank. or natural environment for your fish, right? The leaf litter and tannins, they make it look more natural, especially like my tanks, I try to make them look like the bottom of a lake or something, right? But beyond that, it's beneficial for the fish too. I mean, how often do you see a black water, like proper aquascape? Like I'm talking an aquascape. I'm not talking, a very nice SerpaDesign level tank. I'm talking an actual aquascape where it's professionally done. I don't think I've ever seen a black water one. Other than like maybe the when they go into the biotope category, which as I said, I respect that level of it for fish keeping, but I just thought I'd chime in here and say that.
Yeah, but no one is exploiting it.
Another thing I want to address is that aquascaping and scaping should be considered different terms. Aquascaping is like the professional act of creating an environment that is like purely about the scape, not about the fish. But when you talk about your scape in an aquarium, that's really just putting stuff to be aesthetically pleasing. And I wish people would stop saying, oh, I need to aquascape my tank. No, you don't need to aquascape your tank. You want a nice looking tank. You want something that's going to be ideal for your fish. You can scape it a bit. I'm going to put that in massive quotation marks. And by scape, I mean put the wood in a place. And if it looks stupid, if it's sticking directly up, maybe move it on an angle a bit and put some plants in with, like don't put bacopa or val at the front of the tank and like, I don't know, like dwarf hairgrass at the back, because that would be stupid, right? So just put some level of thought process into it, but you don't have to go nuts over your scaping, okay? So that's basically the point I wanted to make in this video, is that aquascaping is a separate hobby. It does not favor the fish, and people should keep that in mind. And in general, scaping is not, like, you don't need to obsess over your scape, because if you let your tanks progress naturally, you will have a natural environment that is ideal for your fish. The last point I want to touch on here is the nature of, I guess, creating a sterile environment for your fish. I talked about this in my floater video pretty... I mentioned it briefly. I don't know how much detail I really went into it with, but aquariums should be about creating an ecosystem, okay? Channels like Foo the Flowerhorn really encompass this, but, that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to bring that up. But an aquarium is an environment. It's a little ecosystem you are creating in a little box, essentially, right? Do not try to create a sterile environment. That's the problem I see with a lot of these aquascapes, is that even though they are more beautiful, in one of my other videos, I said I'd rather have a rainbow gravel tank compared to an aquascape, because the aquascape still looks like shit, but you put more effort into it. And but both those tanks, I'm going to show two tanks on screen right now. Both these tanks are sterile, meaning they are just plants, or not even plants, but they look very soulless. I don't know how else to describe it, but honestly, for me, a proper aquarium has very overgrown plants. A naturalistic, non-sterile aquarium has a decent amount of fish, definitely some floating plants, lush overgrownness, and you know what? I'm just going to say it, snails. Tanks with snails look less sterile because it's clear there's an ecosystem going on in there. And you know what? My fish, pretty much all my fish, will attack and eat a pond snail every once in a while. I've seen my betta do it. I've seen my Dario do it. So if anything, it creates more of an ecosystem to the tank than just an empty sphere or cube or rectangle that has bright neon like greens that look like the lime wool in Minecraft, and like a giant shoal of Harlequin rasboras. Like, it's just, there's something so soulless about it, and I just wanted to mention that to you guys, that I think personally an aquascape isn't a bad thing. There is definitely talent in people who create some of these scapes. I'll just show some images on screen. Like, some of these are quite impressive and definitely require talent, but it's a separate hobby. And I think we should work to separate the hobbies more. Don't get me wrong, they do overlap. Again, those biotope or like jungle style aquascapes, which do have thought put into them. For example, Aquapros jungle tank, he scaped that, he glued wood together, he put a lot of thought into it. That tank, I love that tank. I don't know if he still has it set up, but it's a very beautiful tank. SerpaDesign's another great example. He definitely puts effort into his scapes, but they still look naturalistic. Meanwhile, I'll show some other pictures on screen right now of just random tanks I found. Actually, I'm going to bring these two up. There's one called Simplicity, and there's this one that's Stonehenge. I don't want to call out these YouTubers, but I am going to bring it up because they are objectively providing bad care for their fish. The Stonehenge one, is not appealing. I don't understand why people like that, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. But there's no hiding space for these fish. This is a carpet of, I think, Monte Carlo. I haven't watched the video in a while, so I can't remember. But there's no hiding places. It's just a bunch of fish zooming around a very empty environment, and that's not good. And then the simplicity one, it grows in a bit later, but it's like minimalism does not translate to aquariums because it's about creating a lush environment for your fish to be happy in. Okay, if you want to make a minimalistic tank, keep an Oscar in there or something, right? Like, I don't know. That's all I wanted to say, guys. I thought I'd just make this quick video. I've been wanting to make a proper sort of discussion thing like this for a while, but kind of separate from the podcast. I think I'm going to start touching on ideas from the podcast in their own videos. But yeah, just to recap, okay. Aquascaping should be considered generally a separate hobby from fish keeping because it's more about the environment that's being created and not about the care or the well-being of the fish. Aquascaping, for the most part, does require a lot of talent, but again, is more about the environment than the fish themselves, which is why I think it should be considered a separate niche of the hobby or like a separate aspect of the hobby or just a separate hobby in its entirety. People who are new to this hobby should realize that that is not the best scenario for their fish. And really, if you want to create something that looks like that, just make a terrarium. It's just as cool. It's just as fun. And honestly, it's quite a bit easier. Yeah, just that's basically all there is to say. You know, create environments that are ideal for your fish. Like, I think I've got my blackwater tank in the background of this video. So, you know, just focus on that. And yeah, that's really all I got to say. I'm the Spiritual Fish Lad. I hope you all create a naturalistic environment for your fish, and I hope they're all doing very well. And if you do want to attempt an aquascape, I am not saying you should not do that. I'm not advocating against that. I'm just saying think about the environment that's ideal for your fish. That's all I got for today. See you guys later.